All right, y'all. We're ready to go live. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Yeah. I got the one thing because I want him to be able to see. I want Mike, y'all to be able to see Mike, and Mike to be able to see y'all. And I could get him on that other screen, but he'll be able to see some of the people that's on. And can you guys see Mike?
Yeah.
Okay, today we got guest Michael Romaine from the new, how new is your paper again? The newly developed.
It's at least 2 years old.
2 years old? Paper known as The Culture. You guys should be getting it on your block in your neighborhood. So I think you should start up with Mike. What you got, Mike? Do you want to start up with some background on yourself and let people know, I know your history, and some others need to know.
Oh yeah, sure. Born and raised in Maywood, Illinois. Went to Proviso East for 2 years, then transferred to Oak Park River Forest after we moved to very edge of River Forest to an apartment that no longer exists on Lake Street. And then from there, went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Left there, majored in English and creative writing. Left there, went to Peoria for a few years. My dad is an artist who had a gallery, or he's had a string of galleries in various places. He had a gallery in Oak Park for a time. And then he moved it to Wicker Park, and then he moved it to Peoria, where it currently is still. So he's on the west side, grew up on the west side of Chicago, in North Lawndale. But he met my mom in Maywood at Proviso East. So yeah, he worked with him at the gallery for a few years, and then returned.
It was art gallery.
It was an art gallery, yeah. And then returned to back to the Chicago area in my mid-20s or so. Really didn't know what I was going to do. Actually, I said I would start studying for law school. So I thought I was going to go to law school. Then I started volunteering. And through volunteering, I started working with this lady named Barbara Cole, who had an organization called Maywood Youth Mentoring. Mm-hmm. And through that work, I noticed that there was a need for a newspaper in Maywood, which at the time, the Sun-Times had I think they just shut down what used to be the Proviso Herald or Pioneer Press. Mm-hmm. Had a string of newspapers dating to the Maywood Herald, and then it got bought by, eventually the Sun-Times owned it, and then they shut it down. Okay. So there was just really one paper that was in the area at the time called West Suburban Journal, just very light community paper, but didn't provide any real original reporting. But I do remember Ms. Cole, she had a issue with the local park district that there were funds going to the park district for renovation. In fact, it was $1 million grant that Senator Kimberly Lightford had identified and allowed to get allocated to the Maywood Park District to renovate a building on 9th Avenue. They call it the 809 building. And the money was spent, but the renovations weren't happening. So this caused this uproar. Ms. Cole, she had these young people she was working with. She's wondering, like, where's the money going? So it turned out that the director was some funny business, but also not altogether corrupt, because there was work that did happen. It just wasn't completed. Eventually it would get completed, but that ended up being a very sore point in Kimberly Life. I've interviewed her before, and she said that the whole situation makes her cry because she did so much for the building. She grew up in the area, and it felt like the money went to waste, or at least a significant amount of it. But there was a white reporter for the West Suburban Journal, freelance guy, who came to interview Barbara Cole about the whole Park District thing. I don't know what happened with the article, but I was in her house when he interviewed her, and I just thought, I can do this. So, and I kept finding like, that was some motivation to just start just doing it. So, in March of 2013 is when I started a blog. I called it a WordPress blog. I got a WordPress account. It was free. That's back when blogging was pretty popular.
Right.
And so I just started this blog. I called it Village Street Press. And the first blog post was about Chris Welch. He had just won a state representative seat in the 7th district. I think he won by less than a handful of votes. It was very close. Beat Rory Hoskins, who's now the first Black mayor for his park.
And he was running for what? He was running for
state rep. Oh, he had just gotten to Springfield. And it was just a little funny post about he was wearing some type of cape in the General Assembly, and I just thought it was funny. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I did know that I wanted to like provide a contrarian, almost satirical opinion on politics. But that quickly changed as I started going to various community events. And I would cover, barbecue. I'd cover everything, people's birthday parties, senior club events, and all types of stuff. Just going to where people were and covering them. Nobody else was really doing that in Maywood at the time. So the first really big, the thing that really got me, I caught the journalism bug when I started interviewing candidates for started interviewing candidates for the election of 2013, where two-time incumbent Henderson Yarbrough was running for re-election. So he's running for his third term. He was married to the late Karen Yarbrough, the former Cook County clerk. She was Cook County clerk. She was recorded these before that. They were like seen as this power couple, but also, I don't know, the Chicago Magazine had some pieces that were very critical of some of the things that Henderson Yarbrough was doing in Maywood. And that coverage kind of colored my thinking of Henderson. I was like, this guy must be bad if all this stuff is happening that I'm reading in the Chicago Magazine and Better Government Association, BGA. They would report all of these scathing investigative articles. That's all you saw about Maywood at that time, and the murder rate. Like it's killing, and then it's corruption. Wow. That's really what you saw about Maywood in the Tribune and the Sun-Times, or maybe basketball. So I started interviewing the candidates who, in that race, candidates for mayor. I interviewed Henderson in his office. I interviewed some of his opponents, including Edwina Perkins, who was a trustee at the time in Maywood, who was very, very vocally critical of Mayor Yarbrough. She was running. She had worked in the post office for a long time, retired, and then got into politics and became a trustee. But everybody knew her from the post office. That's how she kind of got a reputation or visibility within Maywood. And there were several other people running against him. I forget how many. I interviewed virtually all of them, and then all of the trustee candidates for clerk. I started going to the local trustee board meetings as well. And on the night of the election, it turned out that they were, I don't know if anybody involved in politics knows how you get the returns. Right now, we get them on the computer. You know, we're looking at the Cook County Clerk's website to see the returns. You're refreshing your screen just in case.
Yeah.
But then, if you were in the campaign, you could actually get the ticker, the tape, or whatever they call that.
Yeah, you can pull the tape.
You can pull the tape and count it yourself. And so Edwina Perkins, Trustee Perkins, was running sort of aligned with another guy who was running for mayor, Gil Guzman. He was a Hispanic guy who was running for mayor, who's also a trustee running for mayor against Mayor Yarbrough. And he had a whole slate of people, and they had like a campaign headquarters. So they were like election night watch party was in their campaign headquarters, a storefront at the time. And they were like counting the tape as it came in. And so they eventually realized, and they found out that the race was over before anybody else.
Right.
So I was there when they found out and were stunned that Edwina Perkins had upset Henderson Yarbrough. And it was just thrilling. I was like, like when people realized it, they were like, oh shoot,
They caught the bug.
they were, yeah. And I was like, wow. So where's Trustee Perkins? She had been somewhere else looking at the returns on the computer, which had not shown all the returns in yet. So, you know, she went home because she was like, I'm just gonna go to sleep. I'll sleep on it, not knowing what the result, the outcome would be. And of course, I had interviewed her before, so I called her and I was like, Miss Perkins, where are you at? She like, I'm going home, baby. I said, you know, you won. She said, what? Stunned her. So I was the first person to tell her that she
Went in the game.
she won. So she rushed back to Gil Guzman's and their slate's watch party. And when she came, all of these people just started, you know, applauding her as she walked in. She started crying. I think one of her sister was there. There was this long-time white trustee. I'm not gonna say it. He's friendly. You know, it's almost like family at this point when you cover a community for so long. So yeah, he's Rotary member. I was in Rotary with him, but at the time, longtime trustee, one of the longest serving Maywood trustees, who was running with Mayor Yarbrough. I believe he was running with Mayor Yarbrough's slate as a clerk candidate. And he was known to get a little tipsy in public. So he had been drinking. He hobbles over to Gil Guzman's headquarters, whatever, as mayor, as everybody is congratulating. Now she's mayor-elect Edwina Perkins. And he looks at her and he says, slurring his speech and everything. He's like, I can't believe it. A village of this town elected somebody like you. And then he walks out. And I think Mayor Perkins, her sister, maybe, one of her relatives she almost went to blows with this white guy. It was very dramatic. But then I realized, I wonder if Mayor Yarbrough and his people know that he lost. So I went over to his campaign watch party, which was literally across the street, like down the street, catty corner, to where Gil Guzman's slate was watching the election. And I go in, and they're like, there's just like the television is up there, there's screen, they're looking at the Cook County Clerk's website, hoping like, oh, okay, maybe this precinct will do it for us. You know, they're just holding out hope, but it's very gloomy because this is not the result, the outcome that they wanted, but some of them are thinking, okay, maybe I can pull it out. I can be clerk, or maybe Henderson has a few outstanding votes in this precinct that will put him open. And so I go in there, and I'm like, and they got, money to hire people, field workers, to a certain, they're kind of like a, mini machine to a little degree. I think, what's the name? Bass was working on there. And I go in there. I actually saw him. Last, yeah. Yeah. I saw him, and I was like, "Yeah, you know, he lost, right?" And everybody like, "What?" So it was news to them too.
Right.
So I told them, broke the news to them and to Miss Mayor Perkins. And that's when that night I kind of caught the bug. I was like, "Oh, this is it was like a high." I remember when Barack Obama got elected. I was in college. I was serving like I was like I was doing like my last few years in college at in Champaign, Urbana, and I really looked at his race. I saw his race, or like became familiar with his race on the screen. Really, like the debates, the rallies.
He was kind of like the first digital. Or
right. Yeah, right. The first Facebook president, kind of before Trump. I didn't connect with Obama's campaign the same way I connected with that local campaign that made me want to do journalism for the long haul. I felt more exhilaration that night than when Obama was elected, to be completely honest with you, because it was local. And I was like, tangible. It was tangible, absolutely. It was tactile. I could actually affect it. Like, I can be a player among the local political players in the community, and I can be valuable and needed. So I continued to do my blog called Village Free Press, and then that's when kind of also the idea to like want to make it like a newspaper, or like want to do stories in the authoritative voice. So I would write like the New York Times. So that was kind of what and that's kind of how I honed my journalism chops, and acquired some good skills and some bad skills, to be honest with you. I've learned now, trying to mimic the Sun Times or the Tribune or the New York Times was not always a good thing, because these are white mainstream.
Yeah, not on the local.
Not on, so I picked up some bad habits from them that I would need to unlearn over the years. But yeah, I kept doing that blog, and then very shortly after, like maybe a year and a half, I very quickly gained a following, because nobody was really getting like there was no news, so I was the only game in town really in terms of original reporting from the city council meetings. And as I started reporting, I realized that that's when I also realized that what is Malcolm X quote, like if you're not careful, the newspapers, mainstream media can have you thinking the good guys are the bad guys, or the bad guys are the good, and so I was like, and I got to know Henderson Yarbrough over beyond him. After he got out of office, we were members of Rotary together.
He's got a beard.
Yeah, very soft-spoken guy, very nice guy. I was like, these people were wrong about you. I thought you were like the devil.
Nah.
And you and Karen Yarbrough, y'all like this corrupt power couple in Maywood. And I'm like, Karen Yarbrough was one of my biggest supporters. And I eventually got to learn and to know her. It just made me realize how media can distort our perception of the world. And so, like 2 years into doing the blog, I got acquainted with the editor of the Forest Park Review newspaper, Forest Park, and she was like, "Well, we want to start swapping stories or whatever." And I was like, "Cool." And then eventually I started freelancing for first the Forest Park Review, because I was also covering the school boards. So I was covering District 209 too. And so I would write, whenever I would write stuff about the school board, because Forest Park Review, they're in Forest Park, and Forest Park is in District 209, even though they don't want to be. Like a lot of them would say that they don't want to be. Forest Park. So that whenever I would run like school board coverage or whatever, she would put it in the Forest Park Review. And when they would run stuff that was relevant to Village Free Press, my audience,
Mhm.
she would let me run it for free. And we built up a rapport. Her name was Jean Lotus. And yeah, and then eventually that I started freelancing. And then in late 2015 or so, 2014 or so,
Mhm.
Dan Haley, the publisher of, at the time was Wednesday Journal, which is a for-profit local newspaper company. At one time, they had a whole lot of weekly newspapers
Mhm.
around Chicago. But when he approached me, they had Forest Park Review, Austin Weekly News, Wednesday Journal, their flagship newspaper in Oak Park, and the Riverside Brookfield Landmark. So they had four weekly newspapers,
Mhm.
plus Chicago Parent Magazine. So they had like five entities. You can adjust it. Okay. Yeah, they had five entities at that point. So he offered me a job, and so I took it.
And when you said five entities, what was the main conglomerate?
The flagship newspaper was Wednesday Journal.
Okay.
But the moneymaker was Chicago Parent Magazine, which they had acquired from another company several years before, I believe. Mm-hmm. None of the other newspapers made money. Like, they really didn't make money. The newspapers, that was around the time that their revenue was going down. And very soon after that, not very soon, but several years later, they would eventually become a nonprofit. It's called Growing Community Media. And right now, that no longer exists because they were recently acquired by Arizona nonprofit. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's no longer locally owned anymore because they were actually close to insolvency several months ago. Really? Yeah, and that's why they went to this other nonprofit to acquire it.
So how did you get to the weekly now?
So, well, the Austin Weekly,
we kind of know.
Right, Austin Weekly News is owned, of course, by the company that I was hired by. So my job title when I was hired, just like Terry Dean, my predecessor, rest in peace. He was a long time, for like 10 years roughly. He was editor of Austin Weekly News. But so the funny thing is, at the time, while I was freelancing and doing my blog, Terry Dean approached me because he was on his way out. I think he was looking to leave. And so he approached me to see if I would be interested in writing for this new newspaper that him and Malcolm Crawford were thinking to start. Malcolm Crawford from AAA BNA, Mr. Chicago, Mr. Soul City, right. They were thinking of, so we have been meeting weekly. Me and Frank Latin of he has a Westside Writers Group. He works with young people. And he used to also publish a newspaper called the Nitty Gritty News. Back in the day, he works for the Labor Department. It's his day job. But he was operating this youth media nonprofit out of Malcolm Crawford's Sankofa facility. And so we met there once a week for, I want to say a month or so, maybe a little more than a month. We were meeting once a week pretty routinely, consecutively, working on doing this newspaper thing. And because I'm a freelancer, but Terry really was like kind of like, his idea was we'll start it and then he'll leave and just be doing this. Because I really think that he wanted to do something that was locally owned, that was like West Side, right, and not owned by this, white company in Oak Park. This is be real about it. So, but as we were meeting, that's when Dan Haley approached me. Like, that's when he offered the job. He said, "I want to hire you. I'm going to fire Terry." So I had to make a decision. I wasn't working at the time, but I was just grinding it out. I really didn't want to go into an office job. It was really I tried to talk myself out of it but I knew that this was an opportunity that I probably needed to take in order to advance what I was trying to do. And they really, Malcolm Crawford and Terry and Frank and me, we, between the four of us, I don't know, we didn't have a whole lot of money. I knew that, I don't think that, knowing what I know now, I knew I could know that it wouldn't probably be sustainable. At the time, I'm not thinking like a business person. But I took the job anyway. And so I had to be upfront with Malcolm and say, look, I took this job. I can't be meeting with you all anymore. At that point, I got to pick sides.
Right.
The thing is that there are all kinds of, if you're Malcolm or if you're Terry, you have all types of reasons to think that I was probably plotting behind Terry's back to try to like get the job. If I were on the outside looking in, it would look like that. But that's just not. I'm not a plotter, so I don't like. I'm too laid back to really even like be that. Machiavellian.
Yeah.
But I know I try to be upfront with people, and I try to be honest. So I knew I had to like tell them, and I knew I had to like stop meeting, just be up and take whatever came with it. So I was like, y'all gonna be mad, but whatever.
let's see if anybody got any questions, man.
That's how I got to the weekly.
To the weekly, and then we're gonna get to you where you're at now.
Yeah. But
let's start because you guys got a lot of information. Anybody out there want to talk to Mike Romaine about his previous history before we get to the nitty gritty of what he's doing now? Any questions? Go ahead.
Yes, hi. This is Camilla. I wanted to say you brought up Miss Barbara Cole in Maywood about maybe 20 years ago. My son and I used to work with Miss Cole there in Maywood. We were doing mentorship for her, working with students in District 89.
Okay.
And because at that time I was in teaching, and I was teaching in 88. I taught in 209 and a little bit in 89, and that's how I met her. And Miss Barbara Cole was awesome. She really cared about the kids, So when you brought her name up, I was like, oh, he knows Miss Barbara Cole? Yes.
Well, she's still active too.
Yeah, I haven't seen her in a while, so that's good to hear.
Yeah, she got all kinds of causes that she at any given moment, she'll have a cause. Back then it was the Park District. I think lately it's been reparations. So she big on reparations. Now I think she's moving back into a focus on local politics. But yeah, I still keep in touch with Miss Cole from time to time.
Yeah, she's very passionate about helping. Yep. Yeah.
All right. Other questions, y'all? Anybody else? Okay. I got a question because you went totally in depth on the political side of a lot of things that brought you to where you're at right now. Then we're gonna get back to what you're really doing now. Well, since we're talking about elections and races and politics, what do you think of the latest state rep race, and what do you think of the latest congressional race? How it all panned out and the outcomes for the primaries?
I was shocked by how well Chantel did. So yeah, those are the two most important races from my perspective. From a lot of people's perspective, the 8th district state rep race, which is, and the 7th district race. So it's interesting. I think the West Side there's a political realignment happening on the West Side. I think LaShawn Ford is shaping out to be like another Danny Davis, because he's sort of been at the center. He's at the center of this realignment because him leaving his seat opened it up for somebody new, and now he's replacing Danny in Congress. So I think he's going to be, I guess, that new West Side political godfather figure, like Danny has been. So that's interesting to see that political shift. That Congressman Davis seems to have, helped orchestrate. Because I remember, to be frank with you, there was, questions about, okay, who he's gonna pass the baton to? What is the transition? What does that look like? Nobody knew. But whether it was deliberate or not, or I don't know how, what his thought process was, but seemed to be a pretty neat transition from him to somebody who he's comfortable and confident and has trust in to take his place. So seemed to be a pretty seamless transition. Nothing like Chuy Garcia. So that was a mess. So that's the first thing. The other thing is in the 8th district state rep race. You have another West Side, another Austin resident. It would have been an Austin person regardless of who won. I was surprised by how well Chantel Franklin did. I mean, it wasn't even close. She beat the field. I don't think their votes combined may have equaled out to what she got. It was really impressive. For her to be a first-time candidate, that was impressive. But it just speaks to it's almost a law in local politics, especially with a district that size, 70,000 or so people. The person who knocks on the most doors is going to win. I've seen that time and time again. You knock on the most doors, with some exceptions, but in a race like that,
you gotta be electable.
You have to be electable. Well, I mean, we got Donald Trump in office now. Like, what is electability at this point outside of just getting elected? But you have to, in a local race like that, you absolutely have to be in front of people. And I saw she was everywhere. She was all over the place. So that kind of like shows that, old-fashioned politics is still the way successful politics gets done at the local level. National level is different, totally different beast. But at that lowest, that's what works. And then at the level of a congressional district, 700,000 people, name recognition is still, what, and LaShawn had 20 years of, work of experience and time to build up his name recognition, his name ID, and it's more valuable than money. What we saw, he got outspent by several candidates, severely outspent by Jason Friedman.
But we didn't see much coming from his camp.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Well, I saw all kinds of. I saw Jason Friedman commercials if you on YouTube or on Facebook, you saw them all the time. Also, ditto with Treasurer Kanye Zervin. I saw TV commercials for her. I think I may have saw some TV commercials with Jason Friedman too. But I think there's a point where the influence of money can backfire on people who take certain money. Because I think that's what may have happened with Melissa Kanye Zervin. There was, and maybe, I don't think it was a huge deal in our community, in the Black community on the West Side or the West suburbs, in places like Maywood or Austin. But I think outside of the district at large, this AIPAC situation was a big deal. And I think it worked against her because there's a significant turning of the tide happening with respect to how people view Israel right now in the face of what's happened in Gaza. So I think that worked against her taking that AIPAC money, although it didn't work against Donna Miller. So I mean, it depends, but I think the other thing is that all this money, this dark money that went into attacking LaShawn, I think it may have benefited. I mean, that commercial with his skin darkened, made to look like a criminal. If you know who LaShawn Ford is, you know that's just baloney. You know the lies that are in that commercial, and I think that set fire to a lot of people. I think you may have more than a handful of people who like, I'm going to vote for him just because of that BS.
Right.
I'm one of them. So.
and he got covered. He got covered that he didn't have to cover.
That he did his earned media. He got earned media. Didn't have to pay for that press conference where he, you know, broke down. I think that was great PR for him. That was good coverage. It humanized him in a way that you really didn't see in this campaign. And so that was the other observation. I thought that, you know, because we covered all of the candidates, and we co-hosted with the Westside Branch NAACP, co-sponsored several forums, and so we were inviting all the candidates of the 7th congressional district there. So I watched the Democratic primary and the Republican primary, and so I saw just how crazy the Republican primary has been. You know, it was. I thought P. Ray I thought she would have won. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe because she's very convincing, very, very confident. But she's so confident that I figured, okay, I think she has, I guess, enough standing on the West Side that, but you forget that most people aren't voters and they're not Republicans.
And the few that she got
it, right, yeah. And I was just kind of, the guy who she was like close to 90 years old.
Yeah,
farmer, doesn't live in the district. Just said some crazy, wacky things at that congressional forum. But, you know, he ended up winning because the Republican Party is what it is. No matter what these Black Republicans might tell us. It's like telling us to not to believe our eyes, you know. So that was a little surprising, I guess, that she didn't do she didn't do as well as I thought she may have done in the Republican primary. But yeah, those are my main takeaways, because it was really just, I thought Fritz Kagi might have one last sort of, race in him where he beat back the machine, but it was not to be, because these property taxes are just he's running up, even if he may not necessarily be the cause of it, you know, his office is going to
fell on the sword.
He fell on the sword for it, right? And so that was unfortunate. I actually liked Kagi as an elected official, because he came to the community.
Oh yeah, he did.
And you know, only the most cynical people can say that man did 200-300 community outreach events. Very knowledgeable about, you know, about the property tax system. And the only candidate to actually back proposed legislation, which Chantel Franklin, she's the only person who said that she would vote for the circuit breaker legislation. Like, that's real, it's concrete. Okay, now let's have an argument about the pros and cons of that specific legislation, because that's, as opposed to just throwing up our hands and say we can't do anything about it, or just continuing to complain in circles. And that was disappointing, that, you know, we may potentially go back to what we had before Fritz Kagi, which was a slimy machine politician who's taking trips to Vegas, and, you know, who doesn't care about explaining to people so yeah, the information that Kagi put out on the county assessor's website, I mean, he was, in my opinion, he was a very solid elected official. I put him there same with Maria Potts. Regardless of whether she runs for mayor or not, she's been a very solid elected official in terms of how she's able to inform the public about what her office is responsible for. There are no two politicians that do it better than them. that I know of it right now, except for,
But
gotta go
is it
outside.
true that she kind of like pitched the hot potato over to him?
Cool.
Because Pappas, she was like, well, the taxes need to go up because look at the way they're being assessed. In so many words.
Oh, that she may have
got the hounds
yeah,
on him.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean that's still an argument. That's a conversation in terms of the assessment process, which is inherently racist and inequitable. So that's a whole conversation that needs to be had at multiple levels of government. It can't just be had in one office. I think that's what a lot of there's some people who gave Fritz grace, but I think we have to think about these problems in a multi-layered kind of way and think about how each layer of government contributes to the problem or has the potential to find a solution to it. So that's why I look at these races holistically, sort of like together, because you can't arrive at solutions nowadays by just pointing to the state rep or just pointing to Congress. All of these different layers of government have to be operating, and they all have different responsibilities,
right?
That may all feed into the problem that you're facing. So,
absolutely. Anybody have any more questions before we get into the deep dive of what the culture is and how the paper could be effective and help us in our community? Anybody? Oh, Princess Shaw says the layers of what is really going on. She's talking in respect to the actual, what was Prince Kagi's office, the assessor's office,
property tax system, yeah.
Property tax.
Yeah, and I mean, one more thing about the property taxes, like property taxes, it really is. I a conversation with Prince Kagi. I've interviewed him several times in the past about this issue, and between him and the assessor for Oak Park, they're very knowledgeable about this, and he's talking to them made me understand just how it's complicated, but it's not that complicated.
Mm-hmm.
If you live in Maywood, you're going to have high property taxes because your residential property tax base is this, and your commercial property tax base is this.
Yeah.
If you live in Broadview, you don't have our property taxes are not as high because their commercial base is this, and their residential base is this. Princess Shaw also points out another important, the TIPs, tax increment financing districts, are also the columnist for the Chicago Reader and the podcaster. I'm blanking on his name right now, but he points out very clearly that TIF districts are property. They're taxed. They are taxes. They're just going someplace else. And a lot of people, I think we have become so, I think we're never really going to be able to figure out this system if we don't get out of this market mindset that we are in that started in the 70s and the 80s, and TIF districts are a result of this market mentality that says that only business, the government should only be doing big things for business, or they should only be doing big things for the wealthy, or they should only be doing big things for developers. Mm-hmm. And TIF districts, are a result and a reflection of market-based policy solutions or policy that comes out of Reaganism. And so we can think differently about, and even local governments can think differently about what governments are responsible for. And I mean, and at this point, there are certain local governments that are taking proactive measures to try to tackle in their own ways things like property taxes. The village of Bellwood, for instance, they build their own house. For a long time, people were saying, you know, municipalities shouldn't be landlords. But you know, why? Who says they should? Like, if you have a housing situation, you need to bring more housing on the rolls, on the property tax rolls. You know, here's a way to do it. And just because we're a government doesn't necessarily mean that we can't do this. Because who's to say that we can't? So they have built, I don't know, 3 or 4 dozen houses in the village of Bellwood in the last 10 or 20 years. And they actually, the mayor of Bellwood introduced legislation several years ago at the state level that would actually lower property taxes for individuals who buy municipal built homes. Just like you have a commercial property tax reduction if you're in a high property tax area. So if you're in a high property tax area, there's a property tax incentive. It's called a Class B at the Cook County level. If you're a business or if you're a commercial entity, you can actually go and get a Class B tax exemption. So your property taxes drop from 25% to 10%. So you experience a drop. You don't have to pay the same level of property tax. You can pay a reduced level for up to 12 years.
Did you see what Brent said? Quite a few things. He said part of the legislation that we're ignoring and who has control change in the change the legislation. For instance, as an enforcer, that was the first thing. You see the second one? You replace the assessor, but not the treasurer. That's
right.
Or the other officials that are part of the system.
Well, the treasurer is just the person who collects bills. Right.
But she put the bloodhounds on them. I'm telling you, she put the bloodhounds on Fritz, and I don't know if it's deflected, but whatever it was high. And she said homes are being assessed on the amount of the new homes that are coming in and being fabricated, which is pricing out the old homes that don't have the same amenities.
I don't know a whole lot about the intricacies of the assessment process, but that may very well be. I remember talking to Mayor Harvey, the mayor of Bellwood, about this. Because he was complaining too, his property tax bill went up just like everybody else in Bellwood for the last several years. But he he owns several homes in the village. He talked about them as almost like a good thing, because it's like, you know, you want the value of your home going up, and so your property taxes, which is, you know, it's assessed. That means, you know, if your property taxes are higher, that means the value of your home must be going up. I mean, you know, the assessment process is really,
what is it? Fair. That's the key.
Yeah, that is the key. It is
just because you get greater value on your home, is that fair for the person that buys it next?
Right.
And it's really not what it is.
Right. Yeah. And it's like the people who do assessments. That's the other thing I didn't hear a whole lot about. Was like Prince Katie doesn't himself personally go out and conduct assessments.
The board of review.
You know, there are people who go and do assessments, and like, their bias just like everybody else. So like, there's bias built into the system that we really didn't, you know.
Yeah, you see what Prince
talk about.
You read that.
Really strange that the new company that came in to overhaul the system is not being addressed either. They stated that there were many systems that were not integrating over to the new system that they were implementing. And the value of them, housing values going up, wages not absolute. That's true.
I mean, that should be part of it too, you know?
Yeah,
overall, percentage factor.
There was a proposal. The fair housing, it was that it was something that was voted down, unfortunately, that would have taxed the transaction, like the real estate, the transactions of homes over a certain amount of money, like $1 million, I think. The real estate the transaction on that, on the buying and selling of these expensive homes would have been taxed as a way to offset some of these other taxes, but that failed. It was a statewide referendum and it failed. I remember talking to a good friend of mine. He's married to a, I don't think that's pertinent, but the point is that she talked him out of voting for it. I'm like, and I heard this a lot, you know, people saying, I mean, a lot of people were succumbing to all kinds of propaganda about what the tax would do. I see the same thing, and for instance, said they don't have anybody that goes out and do assessment. And that could be the case. I'm not an expert in assessments, so possibly that could be the case. But yeah, Bring Chicago Home, I think is what Princess mentioned. There was Bring Chicago Home. That was, and you know, there's the taxes that were recently proposed by Mayor Johnson. That was shut down by by the majority aldermen. I did a little column on this. I looked at what these taxes were this time around. First time around with when he was trying to raise property tax, everybody unanimously shut him. I mean, that's understandable. This time around, I don't understand why people would vote against taxing Facebook, or taxing social media companies, taxing data centers, taxing yachts.
That makes no sense.
Why would you vote? Why would you be against taxing yachts? I mean, all of these, and these are progressive taxes in that they're not taxing. It's not like the soda tax. It's not taxing poor people for buying pop. They're taxing only people. I've never been on a yacht. Have you? So like, why aren't we taxing more luxury items and wealth rich and and the effective tax rate of billionaires is lower than secretaries. Is what Warren Buffett has been saying. So, the question is, I think it's very. To me, I think it's not as complicated as we would be led to think.
Right.
It's just it's a power play, and the people who have power don't want to give it away. And so, I mean, that's just what it is. There's nothing technical about it.
Right. Well, Mr. James Shannon said, I purchased my home a year ago, this past January, and I'm 100%, what is it? Permanent. Oh, permanent and total disabled. What? Permanent. It says permanent? Yeah, permanent and totally disabled veteran. And the law states that I am exempt from paying property tax. The assessors won't allow me to claim my benefits. And
that are administered immediately.
Now that in itself doesn't make sense. If the veteran is supposed to get benefits, that should be. And I think that is.
I didn't know that there was a law that exempted people from paying property tax.
What you say?
Oh no, I'm still reading James Shannon. I know they're taxing. I know there are what do you call them?
You had to wait another year.
Huh.
That's kind of
Princess Saucer, Katie stated they don't have anyone, and that the assessor's office was they were doing assessments based on homes that were selling and being bought. Okay, so which would be that was a point during the election between Katie and Hines. Hines proposed that they changed the way the assessment process took place. But yeah,
I'm gonna tell you like this.
we'll see in
They gotta get this together.
a year or two.
They gotta get this together.
Yeah.
It's too much, man. I mean, we're gonna tax everybody out of their profits.
Yeah.
I mean, we know the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, but why are you going to where the money's not?
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. They have to change all of that. So, he said they're ignoring the law. That's what he's saying. Who's ignoring the law? The rich, or what are you saying?
I think you talk about the assessor law.
Oh, the assessor law. The one before. Anybody got any questions out there? On Zoom? Definitely not YouTube. It's gonna be a different scenario. Everybody's quiet today.
Do I got a question?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
My question, we talking about taxes.
Right.
I'm not a connoisseur, I'm not a tax person, whatever the case may be. And the interesting thing is, taxes are based on basic, like someone said, commercial, residential, whatever the case may be. So if you're in a place like Maywood and you paying a higher tax and commercial paying lower, whatever the case may be, but your school system is not performing the way it should be. And to me, most people move into areas where they're paying taxes and they have like Yorktown, places like that. Their school system reflects the amount of taxes. What and you can even take that on to Chicago. Why can't our school system reflect the amount of taxes that we are making? So it makes me think, instead of paying these taxes that we kind of like forced to pay by law, why can't we have school vouchers to send our kids wherever they want to go? Because when it comes down to me with taxes, it's about education. And the greatest gift you can give to a kid is an education. And right now, sending your kids to these public schools, and even though they have a lot of accountability and things like that, they have a lot of things they do not fessed up to. And the school unions, we know, fight against all of that stuff like that. But I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat, whatever the case may be, but I believe in different beliefs. And one of the beliefs I believe in is that your school your taxes should reflect the schools that your kids are able to go to. If your community is not able to provide that, then you should be able to take a voucher and send them to the school that you want to go to. What do you guys think of that?
So I could say this: if you're offered the voucher, then guess what? More than likely, the local school won't have students, because a lot of people gonna just pull their kids and send them to somewhere further away, or unless you're saying that the voucher system is allowable in a school that's like 2 blocks further than the one that your kids are in now, then it still won't hurt the community. Because we're seeing that now in many of the schools in the city. They have enrollment of what, like 16 students at Frederick Douglass, 16?
Yep.
That's what this voucher system. Part of the problem is in CPS, the money follows the child. So schools are not funded in CPS. They funded based on population, like per head.
Mm-hmm.
So when Mayor Daley, the son, came up with his plan to basically privatize a significant portion of this Chicago public school system, making a way for a lot of these charter schools. A lot of these charter schools started taking students away from public schools, but with almost different degrees of accountability.
Oh.
So like they don't got to unionize.
Different systems that apply to them.
Different teachers don't necessarily got to have the same certification.
Right.
I actually don't think that. If you switch to a voucher system, it's not going to change the fundamental nature of the school system. The school system is probably going. We've seen that with the charter school system. A lot of people thought, okay, I'm gonna take my kid to a charter school, and the data doesn't show that charter schools are any better or worse. In some instances, they're worse for things like honestly would want, if I work in a school, if I teach in a school, I would want to be unionized, and I would want my kids to be taught in a school that has a union. Yeah, so I don't know if necessarily a voucher system is going to resolve the systemic inequities that are in the public education system.
You had something, Walter? You had a question?
Yes.
You did.
I went to both Catholic and public school. I seen it's totally different. The education in public schools is very poor, unless you're in like Whitney Young in a high-end public school. But they don't teach children different trades or different things. They're teaching them the wrong things, the agenda, wrong history, everything right now. So they're brainwashing with their children. So why do you think the reading level and math level is so low? It's like some kind of revolving door.
I agree with this gentleman. Let me just say that I agree with this gentleman because I posed a situation. I'm sending my kids paying out of pocket a lot of the way for Catholic school. And there's a big educational gap right there. And they will even tell you that. They will even show you that. And you talk about charter schools. I'm not trying to compare public schools and charter schools because to me, they one and the same at the end of the day. I'm saying that when you sending your kids to a public school, they're getting the less of a curriculum. And I can witness that.
It's true.
They're getting less of a curriculum. But when you send a kid, and I ain't saying Catholic schools we're just using the word Catholic, but they are more educationable or more educating the kids than public schools. And the problem with public schools is they putting out fires all day. They got this going on, that going on, and there's a lot of things going on with public schools, whatever the case may be. So if I'm paying $10,000 a year for taxes in a city, I would prefer my kid to have a great education. Whatever's going on in Yorktown, Illinois, and that's around Amherst, and they're public school, but they one of the higher curriculum schools in Illinois. Why can't I have that in Maywood at Proviso East or Proviso West? What are they doing that we cannot do? So I'm forced to say, hey, I can't send my kid to that school because I know what kind of road they're going to go down. And I ain't saying everybody because a lot of people made it through public school. I have. I went to school in Chicago at the end of the day on the west side, or academy, or high school before it became all that other stuff. So I'm saying that we are in a situation where we're trying to get our kids a good education because the greatest thing you can give a kid outside of anything else is a good education and a good start off in life. Why can't we have them while we paying all this money in taxes in these schools and not hear about why they can't do it, but why they are doing it? So that's why I'm like vouchers to Catholic schools, I ain't talking about charter schools, might be an alternative to what's going on right now. Because that's how I feel and that's what I experience.
Can I say something else?
Go ahead, Walter.
All right, there's two different things. Where can I start? Okay, public schools, the union is mostly politics. They're worried about their political positions right now. And another thing I watched on the news, public schools control the money for disabled children that goes to Catholic schools. So something's going on there. It's all political. All of it is about politics. Because look at the president of CPU. There's two different unions. They're making a lot of money. Then the same lady wants to control the Illinois state school system, whatever, their union. There's too much power. And then it goes in a big circle. Everybody's going to be blaming why is this, why is that. So they bring politics. They water down the school system for forever. And then we're gonna do the same product, go over and over and over again. Because we could go 5 miles east or west, we could get to the best education ever from all over public school. Why do you think public schools are like dying right now? They're closing schools. Nobody wants to go to their schools because it's like a revolving door, and it's very, very like terrible. And then also academics, they can go to the college or a high school after public schools. Certain public schools, the academics is very low, so they cannot go to college after that.
I mean, we talk about education, the educational system in the country from a general standpoint. We're just talking about education in America. At the same time that we're forecasting the future where AI is going to take everybody's job. So I don't, I think the problem isn't the education system. I think it's the political system that we live in that prioritizes non-human things over human needs. It doesn't place care at the center of our politics, unfortunately. So I hate to tell you, but it doesn't matter where your kid goes to school at this point. Half of them aren't reading. It doesn't matter where they go to school. There are students going into elite Ivy League universities having never read a book from cover to
not from high school, not from any.
There's a AI chat GPT cheating epidemic in American universities.
You know what I use? You know what I used today? I used AI today, first time, and I couldn't believe it how fast it is.
Oh yeah.
Scary thing.
Okay. Real quick, Camilla, you had something you wanted to add?
Well, yeah, I had two things I wanted to say. Regarding the school systems, I always thought that the lottery was supposed to be established. That money would go into the school systems to help with education, and we've had the lottery in the past few months, year, get up to
1,000 years.
a billion, like $1 billion or something. It's like, how is that when we don't have money for our kids in the education system? We don't have money to pay teachers. They don't have money for this, that, or the other. Um, some of the kids, they say, "Oh, we don't need pencils and paper anymore. We do everything on the computer."
Wow.
So that we don't need books. We do everything on the computer. So there isn't any reading like that, like you just explained, reading books from front to cover, having pencils and paper to write down things and figure it out. Everything's on the computer. Everything is computerized. So
I have a
I
story
don't
about
know.
when I did education reporting in Oak Park, River Forest, Proviso, and the city, less so in the city. I remember in Oak Park, at the elementary school level, the board was debating what they call one-to-one. So one child, one computer. This was a decade ago. So things are way more advanced now. But this was when they were just beginning to give students Chromebooks is what they had at the time. And they got them for free from companies like Microsoft because the idea is these companies give this thing for free, they'll get the kids. I mean, so they were giving this technology away despite the evidence that this could lead to things like screen addiction. It's not good for young developing minds to be on screens as much. And at the same time, they were still being implemented in school because there's a faction of the country that thinks that education, at the time, education was like the biggest untapped market. So they're like, if we can get in the classroom, we can sell all kinds of products, all kinds of services downstream from these iPads and these Chromebooks. And I remember interviewing parents who were very concerned and worried what this would do to their children. And their worry has been borne out, and it didn't have to be this way,
Right.
Because there's no,
when we were younger, I was younger, calculators were beginning to be a thing, but they would never push you towards using it. It's like, no, we're not using calculators.
Right.
Still have to do it longhand.
Because if you get used to using calculators, you no longer start doing the computations in your mind.
Right.
And yeah, we become basically infantilized by this technology. You have stories of people who, because they're so dependent on GPS to get from point A to point B, that they die following GPS directions because
I'm just saying,
Go ahead.
welcome to the future. The point is, AI is going nowhere. GPS is going nowhere. Our kids are acclimated into using computer. They took out cursive writing. Now,
Yes,
one of the difference I do know as far as getting a kid to the next level, and I ain't talking about social migration where you keep up with the people in your area and you keep graduating. A lot of these schools that I know that are getting the kids to where they go, they have secondary situations where if the kid ain't doing great, they have study halls. They have places that the kid can go to uplift their grade and things like that, or get them more information. I already know computers are going nowhere. AI is going nowhere. It could be either used as a weapon or a tool. And you got to teach your kids how to use it as a tool, not as something to use to replace what it is that they know. And you're right. Even when I was a kid going to high school, I didn't want to write out no paper. And at the same time, I didn't want to type no paper. Computers made it a lot more easier for me to type on a computer and be able to correct it and have it help self-correct some stuff for you. It made it easier for me. So it's really a tool if you teach your kids the proper way to use it and not use it to do things that they shouldn't be doing. So all I'm saying is that, putting all that aside, the education system where I'm paying my taxes is so much different if you go to Yorktown, which is probably about 4 or 5 miles away from me, versus coming to Maywood, that the education that is given out is totally different. So what's the problem? So I have to send my kid to Catholic school to just try to compete. Because you can't send a kid to Yorktown because they're not in the district. That's a public school. And because schools like in the city, Austin, or Manly, all these schools like this, they're not producing the same amount of academic achievement that schools like PMSA are doing, Yorktown is doing, these surrounding schools, even Mount Carmel, these are schools that are producing. So what's the problem?
Mount Carmel is high end.
That's a good question, because back in the day, we used to think it was because there were too many students in the classroom. Well, guess what? There are more teachers than students in some of these schools.
Well,
so you can't say that.
I
Thank you.
And I think public schools, I think, one, if you can't depend on schools to educate your children, I think if I had a kid, I wouldn't mind sending them to Proviso East or any public schools, because I know that his or her education will start with me as a parent. I don't think that education in public schools like Proviso East or wherever the case may be is so bad that you can't. It's so bad that you send your kid and there's no way that they can get a quality education. I mean, I don't think that the schools are that bad that if you have an effective parental foundation and you're having your kids write and read independently of the classroom, that they can't turn out just fine. I will say one thing, that when we talk about one measure of value or one measure, certain outcomes related to public schools, like test scores, for instance, that's one measure of value. But I will say my experience going from Proviso East High School in Maywood, Gold Park, and River Forest High School in Oak Park, I did the same way that this gentleman was saying. You know, my dad, when he realized that because my mom and my dad weren't together, had been together since I was a little kid, but he had a gallery in Oak Park, and my mom and stepfather, they moved from Maywood to a little apartment in River Forest. That qualified me to go to OPRF. My dad pushed me to try to persuade my mom to transfer me from Proviso East to OPRF. He's like, why wouldn't you want to go to OPRF? It's such a better school. You have all these resources. You have this, you have that. And so I transferred. It took me going back to OPRF, reporting as a reporter, staying in board meetings until after midnight, going into the school when I realized a few things that I didn't know when I transferred to OPRF. One, that there is something that we're not discussing, is the norm of Black people sending their kids to predominantly white institutions, whether they be public or private, and then Black kids falling behind. Effectively,
I know what you're talking about.
Two different institutions. OPRF is two different high schools.
OPR has two different high schools. He's not lying. They have the Black academic and the white academic.
There's a stratified educational system in America, and it's by design, in my opinion. If I know what I know now, I would never have left Proviso East, because you don't know until you leave these predominantly white institutions what they do to your mind. And they have you thinking that you're not good enough, that your value as just you as a person, your culture has to be continuously improved to the point you never get there, because you're never going to be good enough for these systems. I didn't know how the extent to which my mind was damaged. I got to the point, I got accepted into Morehouse College coming out of OPR and U of I. And I was so demented in the mind that I was like, I'm not gonna go to Morehouse. This is inferior. Wow. One of the biggest regrets in my life is not going to Morehouse. I used to think that people saying going to historically Black colleges and universities and saying that they're a nurturing environment. I'm like, what does that mean? We're not kids. You know, you should want to go where the best resources are, where the brightest minds are. I didn't realize how demented that is to say something like that. But that's what being Black in predominantly white institutions does to your thought process. I think it's very, very damaging. I would not send my kid to OPRF, my Black child. I heard that from a lot of people. I will not send, and I will actually not recommend my Black child go to a predominantly white university. I would push them toward an HBCU with the quickest, because it's something to be said about growing up in an environment where somebody was saying the other day, where your brilliance is assumed, where your humanity is assumed. It's never questioned. And as Black people, we've not been in those spaces since the South. Arguably, you can say that we were, before Brown versus Board of Education in 1954, Black people in the South were going to schools that were dilapidated, didn't have the same resources, but guess what? They were being taught by Black teachers who had PhDs from northern institutions, because they couldn't go to schools, university in the South. You would have schools in the South, you know, that didn't have the same resources, didn't have the same facilities, but these teachers were brilliant. They had PhDs from Harvard, University of Michigan. They were the best teachers in the state, in the country. And then after Board of Education, 1954, there's this book called Jim Crow's Pink Slip that I advise everybody to read. I didn't know this, but after Brown versus Board of Education, there was a systematic firing of Black educators.
Wow.
Systematic. If you go just read it's insane. There was this one story in the book where this Black teacher was replaced by a white man who was a milkman. So like just across the board, they were replacing very highly qualified Black educators, the best in the country, with subprime replacements because of racism, institutionalized racism. And so so that's why I don't feel comfortable when we think that we're going to solve our children or we're going to educate our kids in these systems. They're not going to educate them, even if they come out highly educated. Their mind is going to be. I don't want my kid thinking that they have to that if only they get enough degrees, if only they know enough, then they can be white. I don't. If I raise a child thinking that way, I failed as a parent. And I think the majority of educational systems, are designed to produce that kind of mentality, which is tragic. And so I wish I'd have stayed at Proviso because I'll tell you now, even to this day, Proviso, I've never seen a group, an alumni base that's as proud as Proviso's graduates. They bleed blue. I don't see it at OPRF. I don't see it at. There are very few other institutions whose alumni base have that kind of pride.
Let me say this. I tell my kids every day that y'all can go to Proviso East or West and be the best student you could be. It don't matter where you go, it's what you do. Statistically speaking, when you rank in these schools as far as graduation and whatever the case may be, Proviso East rank amongst like mid to low versus what you guys are saying, and I'm not against my kids going to East because I believe they can go and strive at East and it takes parenting to be there, just like any other school. But I'm just saying, how come these other schools get such a comfortable ride with less students in the classroom, as Steve had mentioned? You probably got less now because there's nobody going there. But why can't we get the same thing for the money that we're paying in the community that we're living in and get the same amount of effort out of this school than these other schools? I don't care if I compare it. That's a white school versus a Black school. I want a Black school to be successful. I want them to go to Morehouse. I want them to honor these Black colleges and things like this. But if you can't get it in the level where you at, what makes you think you can get it anywhere else when you're looking at these white kids who are going to Ivy League schools, getting all the props and whatever the case may be? This is what I'm saying. I'm totally for East. I told my son is in the 9th grade. He plays football. He plays varsity. He's 200-some pounds. He could be a great athlete, and he scored to get into Walter as a scholar. And my daughter is a 4-point GPA at Urban right now, getting recruited by places like Trinity. But why can't I feel comfortable to send them to these schools where they can make not only great athletic ability, but academically and get to where they got to go and not be with the other stuff that go on in these schools? I ain't saying don't go on nowhere else, but when you look at the graduation rate, you got to think about that. And I already know OPOC reporters are messed up. They got 2 different programs. They had a whole program about them. I'm just saying, being real.
We can't discuss education without discussing wealth inequality and economic opportunity. I think that goes into it a lot. I actually don't think that that's been, and this is a criticism of the Democratic Party from my perspective. You've had since I would say since the 70s, 80s, that's been the mantra of the Democratic Party is, get a good education. As if an education is going to resolve systemic wealth inequality. And I think it's the other way around. I think you don't improve educational standards without improving wealth inequality and without making sure that the wealth is more equally distributed. And so I think that's a problem in national policy. I think also that unfortunately a lot of public schools, in the poorest public schools, bear the brunt of some of these insane national educational policies, like No Child Left Behind. And then after that, it was Obama's Race
That was
to
a
the
bad
Top.
policy.
All these are bad policies, and they strip from the classroom autonomy from teachers, where they're forcing them to teach the test, all types of crazy stuff that has nothing to do with sound pedagogy. So I think that's a big issue too. Is just insane national educational policy that's being created and that's being forced upon public schools that bear the brunt of it, and the poorest public schools bear the most of the brunt by people who are not in the classroom, don't really know how these kids function.
Right.
I mean, if you talk to teachers now, my sister's a teacher, the absurdities will frighten you because at this point nobody wants to teach anymore because you're not even teaching, you're doing classroom management 90% of the time. And over the years, national educational policy just has, from the nation, from the federal level to the state and local level, because you had Daley who did all kinds of crazy stuff, with the schools. Rahm did all kinds of crazy. You have all these people who are not educators and who don't have the best interest of children at heart making educational policy. That's a problem.
Let me say this here. It's a
It's a lot
school
of
in. Let me say this.
on.
It's a
Go
school
ahead.
in Maywood called
Yeah, Bob.
PMSA. My daughter go to that school. My other daughter, who got she got a 4.01 GPA. PMSA is on Roosevelt and First Avenue. She got a 4.1 GPA and she did not qualify to go. They called her and say, well, you can go to the PMSA that's in Proviso East, because they had one, and Proviso West had the same type of program, you'll think. But what we found out is that the academic that they teach at the PMSA on First and Roosevelt is a lower curriculum what they teach at these schools over here.
You said
But
the
the
PMSA,
kids-
PMSA Forest Park is a lower curriculum than the other two.
It's a lower curriculum. Go check it yourself. I talked to the principal. I talked to a couple other people. Can't remember what their name are, but they like people who deal with that type of stuff over there. But it's a lower curriculum. And I said, why y'all sending my daughter to us? Why they don't have the same books? They don't have the same teachers. So basically, y'all, we didn't ask, we wouldn't have known. Y'all putting again, like you saying, and we are saying that they teaching one thing over here. Do y'all remember when you would get the books from your grammar school and they were used books? They was coming from up north. They was getting the new books. So that to me brought that to my thing like, hey, they doing the same thing here. They not teaching the same curriculum. They teaching on First Avenue and Roosevelt. They teaching a lower curriculum or PMSA, trying to make us feel like, oh, well, they all the same, then they're not. And
So
the people who get, the people who get fed in that program are the African American kids. The people who taking over the program are the Spanish kids, because they're coming out of Melrose Park and they saving the white kids that's coming out of Forest Park and whatever the case might be. And I witnessed this. And my kids my daughter and them was involved in the program where they talked about this in their play, and they confronted the administration. But this is what people don't know. We know it, but the politicians are out there who's supposed to be looking at this grassroots type stuff. I don't want to get gross, but got their head up their butt and they thinking about what's going on in the world, but they're not thinking about what's going on in the community. It starts in the community.
Right.
Can I say something?
Barbara has her hand up.
Barbara's been waiting for a while, so we gotta get
Yeah.
Barbara. Go ahead.
Hey everybody. I wasn't gonna come on tonight, but some urged me to come on tonight, and y'all right in my wheelhouse. First of all, I did put in the chat. We have $1,000 scholarship for we looking for 10 students, and we already sent it to Orr, Austin, and Michelle Clark. And y'all know we have not got one response. $1,000 scholarship for 10 kids, and we sent it straight to what they told us the contact was, because we contacted the schools. We have not one application.
Send it to my daughter because she getting ready to she graduating this
It's
year.
in the chat. It's in the chat.
All right, send it because she graduating this year out of PMSA, and we need all the money we can to get her through there. We searching
because our deadline is coming soon, so it's in the chat, and I sent it to Steve. I sent it to Steve, but
I'm gonna look it up.
On that strength, I was saying when people trying to help the community, I don't know what the hang up with the schools, because we even try to go into the schools, and they're like, you got to make an appointment. Somebody not there. We trying to give y'all money for these kids, and this coming out of our pocket. It ain't like we're with somebody. We sold raffle tickets for $10, and we got $10,000. We wanted 10 students, and it's very hard to work in the community because I don't know what the thing is that these schools are not sending these flyers to these kids to help them. We say you don't even have to go to college. You can go to a trade school. You can go to do hair, barbershop. We just try, and we had the average grade. That's how we to help, because everybody can't afford it, but they have they want to go to school, continue school, even nursing. We was trying, and this is our second year that we did it. I called every school in Chicago, CPS, every high school last year. Phone number went down the list. I didn't get no calls back.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what's going on, but it was so disheartening to us that we started going, because we really wanted to do center on the west side of Chicago, but we expanded out because we weren't getting no responses.
All right, politically, they're not passing the information. That's the only thing I can tell you.
Exactly, and that was so disheartening. But we tried. We said, "Come, let us meet them. Let us meet the student. Let us come to assembly. We can shut down." So I don't know what's going on. And the other thing was, y'all so right. I'm in Schaumburg. The school, the stuff that my kids get compared to CPS, because they both know autistic, ADHD. The school actually put them in therapeutic school. The therapeutic school wasn't working. They actually paid for them to live somewhere else until they got it together with the same amount of money as it was a therapeutic school. And they sent away, and they just came back. They've been there a year. I didn't have to pay a penny, because people don't know CPS. If your child have an autistic or autism, ADHD, the autism follow first, and they actually supposed to pay for what they need. Therapeutic school by law. And I called West Springfield to find that out, that they had to pay for them to go there. 2 kids I got, my grandkids I'm raising, and they paid for them to be there 2 years out my house for everything, schooling, boarding, room, everything. So they wouldn't go back into the cycle of mental health crisis from when COVID with the computers. They was on the computer so long, it broke them. Them kids was on the computer so long doing the homework, it broke my kids. So that's why the computers were not a good thing. So I had private tutors come in my house and teach my kids to get off their computer. And guess who paid for it? The state paid for it. They had a grant, which they didn't put to Chicago, CPS, that they had paid for people to come into your house. And I still get that stipend, $1,500 a child right now. Even though COVID's over, I still get that money every year.
Good, that's good.
Well, you need to spread that so other people could take advantage of it with their kids, because we all have a problem with kids who are on social media and these tablets and computers that we're trying to wean them away from, because we know the dangers of it in different types of ways and academic.
So, excuse me, I just want to say one quick thing about that. the only thing that will suffice for your kid to get that type of funding is they have to have an IEP or documentation showing that they either have autism or some type of specialized learning disability. That, and then they can qualify. If your child is in general education, they don't qualify for any of that.
No pun intended. Public school gives them that, but I'm just saying.
No.
Can I say something?
Hey, Walter, what you got?
It seems like you guys talking about colleges. I hear from the inside some of those big donors that donate to these colleges. They'll actually give free rides to like students if they have good like grades. That's all the prestige schools.
I think we need to give rise to kids who are in the medium of it. They on the edge of it. They can be doing great, but they need to actually push. They might need some type of social help, some type of counseling. And
Yes.
I think they need to really reach down further than they're reaching.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes if you're reaching for that school, there's all these donors that'll give you scholarship, like a free ride to all these colleges. Yeah.
Okay,
Then
Barry.
let's. Hmm?
No, Barry, I thought he had something.
And
Right.
then like trade
Yeah.
schools too. People should learn, different trades.
This is a wonderful conversation, and this is a really big subject, and I think the only way to really make progress on it is to have some ongoing conversations about how we can work together. I didn't catch the name of the man who with the blue cap.
Oh,
Uh,
you're talking Michael Romaine from the culture. You knew him probably from the big
Oh,
league.
yeah. Oh, okay. Hey, Michael. All right. Gotcha. You're teaching now, Michael?
No, I'm still in the newspaper business.
Oh, I thought you were saying you were talking as if you were an OPRS teacher. I misunderstood.
I used to report on
Yeah.
for OPR for Wednesday Journal.
Yeah, right. I remember.
But I was also speaking from experience as a student, former student there.
I see. Gotcha. Well, what I was saying is I think we need ongoing work on these major issues. But I had a similar experience that Barbara had, where we had a small amount of money. I think it was $600, and it was very difficult to reach anybody at OPRF. And then I tried on the west side, and we finally got some out, but it was very difficult because the communication, because the staff is overworked, is my sense of it, and too many demands. I don't know what all the problems are, but it seems like there are immense problems.
When I was reporting at OPRF, the board would vote to accept gifts all the time. So that's interesting that you ran into that problem. I know OPRF gets gifts and scholarships quite frequently, quite often. So I wonder what avenues you may have went through, because there.
I think I called the administrative office and tried to, and maybe got the names of one or two teachers, and left messages, didn't get callbacks, that kind of thing. It was never made any contact with the board about it. It wasn't that much money. We had a total of $600 that we were giving out, and we were looking for kids to write something about their experiences, I think, in regard to peace. In and we were just looking for something brief, you know, from their own personal experiences, and pick out a few and, you know, make the selection.
So yeah, with CPS, it's really hard to make connections if you don't know
Yeah.
the specific people, and because they have pretty much revamped from their CEO on down. There have been a lot of changes, a lot of people that you might have been used to having some type of rapport or relationship with. Those people have been moved or they're gone, they phased out. We got
I
new
rec-
people in different positions now that don't really know what's going on. So, they kind of passing the buck.
I
And
would rec-
oh, I'm sorry.
I would recommend at the school level. I know maybe you all have done this already, but probably the easiest way to get into individual schools are through the local school councils. And you can even see if a school, they have these things called sustainable community schools that are new. Austin High was just designated one last year, where community groups come in and can offer supplemental programming. So if you can see if the schools that you're targeting are designated community sustainable schools, that would allow it easier to do something like that. But I would suggest like going via the local school council, because they are, they're supposed to sort of be like a quasi governing body for the school, and they're made up of community members, but also students serve on those where they're supposed to, and faculty members and staff. The problem, however, is that some schools don't have enough people to run for the LSCs. So a lot of them, unfortunately sit empty because they don't have anybody on them.
Which is strange because every student has a parent.
Yeah, right. Their parents who can run, their community members who can run, students, faculty members, and then there's some faculty or staffers that are automatically, like principals, they have a seat because of their office. But if a school that you're targeting has a functional LSC, that would be a good place to start. Probably the best place to try to approach. I'd approach individual members of that LLC in particular, because they have to they meet regularly, and they have rapport with the school community. So maybe that's one thing to try.
Right. Well, let me see. Anybody else got anything? We'll go another 5-6 minutes, maybe, y'all. And,
So, Michael, what are you doing now? Are you still writing?
you gotta get
Oh
the
yeah,
whole bit.
yeah. So I publish a newspaper on the west side called The Culture, and you can visit it at ourculture.us, ourculture.us. We also put out a weekly podcast. We started this podcast a few weeks ago. When we have one there.
Can you send your website address?
Steve can put it in the chat where you can see it. We cover Austin, North Lawndale, West Garfield Park, and then 3 suburbs, west suburbs: Maywood, Bellwood, Broadview. And we're trying to be a platform for the greater West Side to tell stories and to showcase the things that they're doing. But the print edition comes out every other week.
Was it Our Culture?
Yeah, ourculture.us. One word.
Is it political or is it news?
No, it's stories. So I cover. It's a variety of things that I cover, topics that I cover. We focus, and we want our focus to be one. We want it to be sort of a clearinghouse where you can see everything, all the things that, a lot of things that are going on the west side of Chicago and some west suburbs. So there's a calendar there that we're trying to populate with things that are happening. But we also, tell stories that often may not necessarily get told. So we centered a lot of the stories there are human interest stories about people and places on the West Side that are interesting. But yeah, we do delve into politics from time to time. We sent out candidate questionnaires to, we partnered with the West Side NAACP to send out candidate questionnaires to candidates running as Republicans, Democrats, Independents in the various races. We selected between 3 and 5 that were the most important races. So we focused on like the successors race, and we sent candidate questionnaires out to them. The 7th congressional district race and the 8th state rep race, and we put together a voter guide where we summarized some of the candidates. We invited them to submit questionnaires, answers to questionnaires that we had that we created along with the West Side branch NAACP. So yeah, that's about as political as we've gotten so far. But we also, from time to time get people who want to send us op-eds, or there's one lady, West Side poet, who is National Poetry Month this month. So she asked if we could publish one or more of her poems, so we did that.
What's her name?
She goes by the name of Renee or Doreen. Her last name, I'm forgetting. But she's written several books. And she's a longtime poet. Here she lives in Maywood, but she's from Austin. Yeah, so it's just a way for us to tell stories that typically won't be told. Now eventually, with the state of news media now being what it is, we don't have money to hire a bunch of reporters or, not a lot to do that. So I'm sort of rethinking our approach to how we get information out. And one of those is considering the institutions that are already existing in the community to be sources of information and what you can do with that. So that's why, I've been talking with Steve about connecting with block clubs that are already in existence, so that, they're sharing information about things that they're doing, and we're allowing them to report it themselves, write about it themselves, or, reporting on it in a way our own. These are institutions that aren't typically considered authoritative by mainstream media. They really are.
It's as grassroots as you can get it.
Yeah, right. It's as grassroots as you can possibly get. So the block clubs are, they're the salt of the earth in a lot of communities on the West Side and in the West suburbs. So we want to actively and deliberately engage that network that's already there. So that's a work in progress right now. And we're also thinking about, in addition to block clubs, I've been trying to assess the business climate in the area, what that looks like as well, because there are a lot of businesses that are coming into the area that are new here that could benefit from exposure, for instance. So, one of our primary sponsors is 40 Acres Fresh Market grocery store. So, they have a ad.
Liz?
Yep, Liz Abuno.
Every years ago.
Every issue of the paper, they're in there. West Side Health Authority obviously funds us. We also recently got funding from Chicago Community Trust. And we're looking for more funding as well, because what I found is that we don't necessarily, it's kind of like how people use the word food desert. The West Side, I don't know food desert. Maywood is not a food desert. Austin is not a food desert, because if you walk 2 blocks, you're going to run into a chicken place or a barbecue place or a soul food place or a gyro place, whatever the case may be.
But
So
you do know the real term of food desert.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think it's lazy though because it doesn't quite capture the reality of what we're talking about. What we're really talking about is we're not talking about food deserts. We're talking about food apartheid. And in fact, we're talking about.
Hey, boy. It's Monday now. Why are you watching this?
Go ahead.
So, so yeah, when I say when we talk about news deserts, there is indeed a news desert. There are news deserts everywhere. If you talk about news in the traditional sense, but again, Austin, Maywood, these communities are not news deserts. Or if you think of the news in a way that's different from how we traditionally thought of what news is. A lot of people still get their news from barbershop. A lot of people still get their news from the people on the street. If a crime happens, a murder happens, a lot of times the people on the street know more about it than the police. That's a form of news. Right. So we're if you think of news as information passed along, we're in a very information rich space. The problem is like what kind of information and how that information being channeled. Do we trust it? And how can we pass it along? So unfortunately, the social media companies, behemoths like Facebook and TikTok, they've come in and replaced what used to be a more structured media environment by traditional news, quote unquote. The newspapers were the Facebooks of their day. Right. But the problem is that kind of information environment, the kind of information environment that we have now with Facebook and TikTok, it's toxic. It is not amenable to a democratic country. You cannot focus on any of these platforms. It does not allow opportunity for structured, patient, slow dialogue, or even like very smart dialogue. Wow. So like you go on Facebook, half the time you're scrolling, you're saying something about the Real Housewives of Atlanta under a scroll that your auntie or uncle posted about somebody going. It's very hectic. So what we want to do with the culture.
One of them black knives, not us.
Go ahead. So what we want to do with the culture is we want to offer an alternative information ecosystem where stories about the West Side by West Siders can be filtered in a way that is ordered, a little less chaotic, and that allows people, that brings back focus into people's information diets, and that's trusted, because trust is a big thing, and so that's something you said. That's what we kind of modeled our whole podcast after. We say West Side people talk about West Side issues right here. Right. Yeah. No matter what that means. As far as Humboldt Park, as far as Westchester, whatever. Right. So I think there's more the future of news or media, whatever you want to call it. Trusted media, it looks like this, and I'm quite honestly. And we're gonna need a lot more of it. A lot more of it. We need more funding behind it, all that stuff. I'm gonna talk to you about it.
Michael, I'd like to pitch something to you and see whether there's a possibility of working together.
Oh, go for it.
Pardon me?
Go. You want to do it now or later? I didn't.
I'm open to anything. Steve, what's your preference?
Go ahead. We got time here.
So one part of the work is a new story for Life and for the West Side. It's called Peacebrook, one word. In Peacebrook, people help each other, have a thriving community, and grassroots governing councils where anybody can start a Peacebrook group or council. The fundamental idea is if you think you have a way of making things better tomorrow, you don't need anybody's permission, just do it. You need support, you come to other Peacebrook groups. Second part of the work is called, it's a big proposal that we're working on, and it's called Good Money Chicago 2028. And 2.5 years from now, people will be able to buy most essentials using either their dollar or their time-based credit card. People prefer to use their time-based credit card because you can't get some essentials like gasoline with anything but dollars. So people hold on to their dollars, and the higher prices go, and the fewer the resources available, the more they turn to each other and help each other and record the transactions on timeexchanges.com. And all it takes to record a transaction is the first few letters of the person's name, the amount of time, you're done.
I think that's a very innovative. I think we need to be thinking about alternative forms of exchange because, especially, as capitalism becomes.
The whole culture is in decline. And it's not just the schools, it's everything, the healthcare system, you name it. And what we need to do is rebuild the culture where what it's about is good people helping good people and building up the strength of families and morals. And what this time currency does, what good money is about, is a paradigm shift. Everything shifts when you're using time as the medium of exchange. And so the fundamental proposal is, as Trump cuts funding for clinics, the city, the county, the state, universities, whatever, the proposal is that these organizations replace the lost federal dollars with the equivalent amount of time currency. So if your clinic would have laid Tom off, and Tom had worked at the clinic for a long time, but if they lost 15% or 20% of their funding, instead of having to lay Tom off, they offer Tom to pay 80% of his salary in dollars and 20% in time currency. And Mary, who would see a doctor at the clinic and ordinarily would pay $100, would pay $80 and an hour of time. And the hour of time taken in by the clinic is used to pay Tom for the time currency part of this. And
for credit time.
Yeah.
With credit time, 20%. If he would have used the hospital.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead, Walter.
So wait a minute. So wait a minute, Walter. Just one second. So what's fundamental in all this is relationships and trust. And what you're about is information. And the kind of information we need, it's a new kind of information. It's how can people learn what they need to do. And there are gifts everywhere. And as we free ourselves of the chains of not enough resources, the whole West Side becomes a land of opportunity and flourishing. It's a whole new paradigm.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really, I don't know how, I'm open to talking about how we can, we can help.
So would you be interested in a conversation about how we can do all that?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Great. Steve, can you give him my contact, or Michael, can I get your current contact? I may have your.
I'll give it to you.
Okay, good.
Walter, real quick.
And he can give you mine too.
Okay.
Yeah, Michael and Steve, everybody on here. There's this thing at Malcolm X College, April 27th, Monday, between 11 o'clock to 3 p.m. at 1900 West Jackson Boulevard, room 1106. They're going to be talking about businesses, non-for-profits, grants, and everything else. And it's by the Secretary of State Office.
Okay.
If you're interested to go.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Let me just say this before everybody get off. Don't forget James Shannon is having his 18th annual anti-gun violence prayer vigil. That's going from 1 to 7 p.m. at Columbus Park, 500 South Central Avenue.
There's a flyer for that.
I got a digital flyer. Okay. And don't forget, hey, come out to that. What else do we have? Hey, we can go through the list here. Anybody got anything else in particular they like to add in?
I was just gonna say, you got all these people on the call that are involved in different aspects of community service and organizations that help. Maybe we can utilize Brother Michael as a platform to get the word out for everybody as well.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, we're always trying to post what's happening in the community. There's also a resources page on the website that we're always trying to update. And then we also are planning in-person events too. To just be in front of people. Last year we're based out of this Fire Center for Workforce Innovation at Madison and Central on the second floor. That's where we do our podcast. That's where the media room is located, our newsroom. So we do invite people to come and pitch ideas, potential story ideas, resources, all that type of stuff, and we try to channel it in a way that's accessible and to people. But right now, I'm just at the point where I'm trying to get the word out and spread, spread the burden of actually doing this, and trying to recruit more people to help out with trying to make the culture what we think it can be. So
Facebook is good.
Yes, wonderful.
We're gonna link them in on it, whatever we can. But I thought the other thing you wanted to say was you want to get more intimate with the block clubs.
We absolutely want to get more intimate with the block clubs. Absolutely.
Okay, Ella.
That's the place where that's the bedrock of the community to a certain degree. And so if we can plug in with block club members, we've been bouncing off ideas, Steve and I. So one idea is potentially to create a comprehensive map of where block clubs are. Because one common misconception about the West Side from people who are outside, especially Austin, is that there's no social efficacy, we don't have any assets, community assets, but it's like they're there if you want to see them. And so how do we bring them to light? So that could be a block club mapping project. Is something that I think we want to start doing, because we have to, before we can even tap into assets, we got to know where they are. So I see what we're doing is sort of like asset mapping. We got to know where things are happening, who's going to be there, and then because information then becomes a tool for empowerment.
Right.
If you have the information, unfortunately, a lot of times people are just an information source away from solving a lot of their problems.
That's it. That is it. Ella, what do you think of that? And we're going to close out with a couple more. Okay. Dr. Raheem, anything in conclusion?
Hey, what's up, good people? Excellent show tonight, Steve. I appreciate you and the guests. Everybody that was on, it was a great dialogue. And yeah, so how do you get in contact with, not get in contact, but how do you follow like your newspaper and everything?
Yeah, definitely a good resource.
Yeah, you go to the website, ourculture.us. That's the website. and that'll take you to, our social media pages. Our past print editions are up there that you can peruse. You can see where we drop the paper off every other week. You can see stories as well, and then the community calendar is there. Everything there, and then you also can listen to our past podcasts that we have. I think the last one was last week. We had the most recent one is an interview with Deborah Vines, who's founder of the Answer Incorporated. She's having a walkathon that's coming up next Saturday, I believe, for her organization. She has really, if you don't know about, it's an autism awareness nonprofit. She specifically services young people with autism and who are on the spectrum. In the west suburbs and the west side, she also has friends from the south side, even some of like as far out as like Plainfield and places like that. But she specifically works with young people with autism. Her son, 36-37-year-old with autism, who she was able to find an independent living situation for him through a nonprofit organization in what is the suburbs out there. But she has a ton of resources for people, for kids who have kids and family members who are on the spectrum.
I saw at the proviso meeting yesterday. She spoke of how she has a program now where she, take your autistic or disabled kids into the fold.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
She had over 25 families.
Wow. Yeah. She also works with first responders, training them to deal with people with autism when they arrive on the scene of emergencies. She does a lot of really good excellent work. Yeah. Yep. Before that, we interviewed LaShawn Ford. Before he won, that was a week before he won. So, we record every Wednesday. So if anybody is interested in telling about something interesting,
Raheem Young is a great candidate because he has a program called Welcome to Fatherhood.
Oh wow! Yeah, we know. Yeah, I definitely need to learn more about that.
Definitely.
All right, cool. Appreciate it. Steve, you can get my contact from Steve, then we can connect.
He used to be out of House on Austin? In Austin. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
We still work closely with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just talking to somebody who's affiliated with them, one of their parent coordinators. So yeah. No, I'm trying to like get a sense of who's everybody who's doing something,
right?
And then how can information that we come across benefit people through us. So a lot of people would probably love to hear about the resources that
we're gonna tie them all in. Yeah. And I think to get the resources out and about, and figure out how we can disseminate and distribute this paper, on the block. Because
absolutely,
even if most blocks have at least 36 to 26 homes on the block, even if you got 12 or 18 of those properties to take the paper, that's a start. Because the next person might want one next time.
Right, and then they can always go on the website too. You don't have an actual physical copy.
That's true.
And we put out a newsletter. Try to do it every week.
And see, this is the other good thing. Many of the Block Club presidents, they're so used to doing SneakerNet, going door to door, giving information. They could put their little information in the paper about their block, and it could be isolated to that along with your information for their block. When they're having parties, other news that they need to know about that pertains to the blocks around them and close to.
Exactly. So, you got Block Club Chicago, which is a media outlet. I don't know if people are familiar with that. It was started by former DNA Info reporters who
what's the guy's name that's over there?
It's 4 of them. It's 4 different former journalists who started it. And they call it Block Club, but they don't do this type of Block Club work. So this is like we're literally trying to like engage Block Clubs. So
grassroots nitty gritty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, y'all. If anybody else got anything out there else extra to add, please let me know right away. I'm just gonna read off a couple things that I think Janae Nellum just said. Crystal Dyer, but I guess Crystal was on. Let's make sure Crystal got a chance to say some things. Who else? James said it probably, no, you can probably imagine how many veterans are experiencing the dilemma. Just wanted to include the information, seeing that the subject is about property taxes. He was talking about how the veterans are not getting their fair shake as far as having their, what is it called, a tax, not a rebate, but a tax
exemption.
Exemption, correct. And that was pretty much it, y'all. Chris Shaw, attention. Oh yeah, she said, this is pertinent. She says, we're not paying attention to what Hines has done in
Yeah,
line.
I actually wanted to ask for what
Yeah,
she could get into that.
still out there, real quick, we can touch on that. So you have to pay attention to people.
Because I
Track their record.
Right.
Yeah, I was out in my line with Chantel.
really.
Yeah, we started to get down out there with him.
Yeah, speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yes, that doesn't sound good.
And it's Lyons Township for a reason.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, we gonna do what we do.
There was the reason why I wanted Fred K to win.
Yeah, I mean, I told you he fell on the sword. They threw him on the bus. He's a poster child, and he got it because of all of that. But anybody else, anything else? I'm gonna go ahead and close out like
Yeah, Michael, when's a good time to talk?
Between Wednesday and Friday,
So Wednesday when?
Oh, you put me on the spot. Can we set something up?
Yeah, he'll call
offline?
you.
Yeah, I'll wait till everybody signs off.
Okay. Yeah, he'll give you information.
Sure. Go
Okay.
ahead, Bob.
Oh, Steve, could you get him the flyer? Could it possible you put that flyer out there that I put in the chat or sent to Steve about the scholarships?
Yeah. Can you email?
Because we got a deadline coming, but I just want any child that probably want to go to college or trade school to have the opportunity.
What's the flyer?
If they're already in school, can they also apply?
If they were?
If they're already in college but need extra
No, we're
money.
not doing it. No, not this time because they're not getting a lot of Pell Grants and stuff to go to college. So we're trying to get them to go to college.
First-time students.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll send it to you, Steve, if you could send it to him.
I just did.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get it out to people.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Okay. We're gonna go ahead and close out. Like DeAndre always says, they didn't want to allow us at the table, so we had to create our own. And as we do every Sunday from 6 to 8 o'clock.
DeAndre will be on our podcast next week. Yeah. DeAndre.
Okay.
Yeah. Another person.
We want to welcome you next time to Northwest Austin Council. Thank you all. Good night. Didn't hear from you,
Good night. It was a nice talk. Nice meeting you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Everybody
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Maybe next week I'll talk. Good
Good night, everybody.
night.
All right, Max.